All right, here we go. We're back with another one here, coming to you just about live here, the We Shall Not Sleep podcast. Happy hump day, everyone, as it's almost over for the people of the East Coast. And I appreciate you tuning in this evening to tonight's show. I've been very grateful for your patience with me in the last several weeks, months, maybe year. I don't know what it is. But I like doing these evening shows. For those, again, checking out these when they drop. It's just life has been getting crazier and crazier, but I've been still wanting to share with you guys. So continue to follow us on our YouTube channel, SoundCloud, where we're hosted, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Our YouTube channel is great if you're ever needing a backup place for those who like listening on there. Just search We Shall Not Sleep, Michael Crable, and you'll find me. Continue if you would like to receive any feedback, or if you want to receive feedback, not from me, if I want to receive your feedback. How about that? Let's try that. You could send emails to wsnspodcast@gmail.com. All right, so tonight I want to share with you a vision or passion that has really starting to become clear. I got the nudge just about after I became a pastor in September of 2020. Actually, it's been over 2 years now. Um, I've talked about my boss Mike Perry, my friend, and his wife, my other friend Jessica, are on here, and they now have 6 kids. They didn't have 6 kids when I met them and started working for Lanier 4 years ago. But the thing that for me was immediately came apparent is that they're kids. I wasn't the biggest fan of kids, and it was really nothing to do with the kids. It was just really how the parents had raised the kids. I had not been as lucky in my life or fortunate or blessed to have run into really well behaved kids all that often. But their kids are little angels, and I love them to death. I love them as if they were my own. I had the privilege of taking their oldest 4 to a movie a couple years ago, and I asked if I could surprise them, and I took them, and for that 3 hours, I would have I would have took a bullet for every single one of them. Like, my life did not matter anymore. So I say that, but you know, the thing that's become apparent to me is children and the need that our children are in this country. The orphanages in this country fell by the wayside, and it's hard for me based on research, how many orphanages and kids, were there in the United States, throughout the 20th century, and since it started in the 19th century here in this country. But the one thing that was weird is that they're no longer around. Um, and it's just kind of weird because you basically you have 3 terms of adoption. You can either go through a private agency and working with infants that need to be adopted as soon as the mother has the child, go through foster care, or you can do international adoption. And according to a lot of research on there, it's around like just over 100,000. It's just like it's 1.25. It's like 100 anywhere between 100 and 125,000 kids that need to be adopted per year in the United States. Well, according to FBI statistics as well, they talk about, this is really disheartening, around 840,000 children go missing every year. And you talk about what your purpose is as a parent. Like, how does that happen? Is it because of the foster care system? Do adoptive agencies, are they trafficking children? You think of all these things in your mind, like, how do that many people go missing? Children. I mean, if you're a parent listening to this, where's your child right now? You probably know the answer to that question, or at least you think you do, right? But how do this many kids go missing? Now, obviously, it depends on, you leave them with a babysitter. Is the babysitter trustworthy? Are they going on a play date? Is that parent trustworthy? They're going over to a friend's house. Is that friend trustworthy? Are they by themselves and going off? I mean, how does this happen? I mean, as a parent, keeping your child safe is like your whole goal in life, right? At least you'd like to think so. Well, I'm not going to speak against anyone here. I'm just wondering, can it be done better? Can we keep children safe? And then my mind starts to go to what about, well, not what about just not children, but what about those who are, underprivileged, like the troubled youth? But then I'm like, well, what about our widows? What about our elderly who get put in nursing homes? Um, I just I think to myself, um, well, what other ways can we be helping the least of these, the lots? Well, this vision of mine was like, what would happen if you had a place of land and you built a like complex and it was to house the least of these? At the end of the book of James, this is what it says. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. And we see what Jesus says, about what the poor, feed the poor, clothe the poor. Well, Master, when did we do that? It's like, well, when you did it to one of the least of these, you did it for me. Woe to those, who harm kids. It better for them to be, thrown with a millstone put around their neck and thrown to the bottom of the sea than to harm one of these little ones. Think of all the words that Jesus says and what the scriptures say about what we're supposed to do. I was like typing like envisioning this building, this property where you could have like an orphanage and like a home for people of all ages, infants, kids, adults, run by the church along with maybe a widow support group or um and then just the elderly who can't take care of themselves. So it's like a nursing home, orphanage, and community center all in one, but it's run by the church. We're not going to allow these people to be put away into care that's really strained. We're actually going to provide the care. We're going to dictate this. It Here's the thing: is that the church did not fight to keep all of this from happening. Obviously, there's more people, there's more problems, it requires more experts. There's a lot of logistics. But you don't think that the church, with all of its people, Protestant, Catholic, if we didn't, if we really wanted to, we could do it. It's a mandate. We're supposed to take care of the least of these. Now, I want to be cynical here, okay? I'm going to be cynical in this aspect. So please hear me. What I am not speaking to are the altruistic, selfless, God fearing people, and maybe not even the God fearing people, but the people um that are genuine people. Okay, I'm talking about like let's be cynical here and say what are the worst aspects? Well, I can't take care of my family member. I don't want to take care of my family member. We're going to put them in a nursing home, and they're just going to waste away. I don't want anything to do with them. We all see that. Well, if we go to a nursing home, you see the people who are neglected. Their family doesn't really care that much, or if they care, they don't care enough because it's like, oh, I think of my mom, but I'm not going to go see her. We see that all the time. I don't think that's anything new. Obviously, they're adopting out of foster care is free. At least in the state of Michigan, it's free. There could be a few like court fees, but it's nothing like adopting a kid, not adopting like out of private care. And then you get a stipend, you get reimbursed, and there's tax credits. So essentially, you're getting paid to have a kid. Obviously, it's in your budget. Obviously, I get all that. But do you think there's people out there who gain the system? Just you get a lot of what is it called, foster bucks? You kind of treat the children as a commodity and you utilize it. Of course, there's neglect. Of course, there's abuse. Absolutely, we know of that too. I'm not saying there wasn't in the church. I'm talking about ideals here. And then you look at adopting privately, assuming it's not coming from step parents or grandparents or another in-law or whatever, but you're doing through like an agency with court fees, placement fees, housing fees, reviews, um, travel expenses, anywhere between like $25,000 and $40,000 to adopt a kid out of non-foster care. So if you want to adopt a kid, it's really expensive. And if you want to go through the foster care system, it's free and you get paid for it. Then there's 840,000 kids that go missing every year. How's that possible? It's just very strange. I understand that bad things happen, but how do 840,000 kids go missing? Just one of those things that it's starting to hit me. Now, this might sound really dumb to you. You say, "What's the point? How would it be? How would it differ?" Well, first off, we keep the kids safe, and then secondly, there'd be a layer upon layer of accountability, background checks, security, and most importantly, it's not last. But I'm just saying, if you want to get through the practical things, how about the fact that we're going to do it in Jesus' name, and we really don't have a choice? If you're asking me, doesn't mean that there's not Christians working jobs out there. Well, why don't we move it away from that establishment, take it away back away from the government's hands, which we so easily relinquished, and say, no, we're going to do it this way because we're the church and we actually know better because we know that the care we give people is not just for their physical well-being, it's for their soul. And for the kids that need the unconditional love, the people that can't fight for themselves, they need that advocate. Are they 100% going to get it in the foster care system or adoption? Not necessarily. No system's foolproof. I'm just thinking it could be better. And the excuse of, well, it's pretty good right now, like, well, children, it should be bulletproof with our children, leaving no room for improvement type of mentality. I want you to think about that tonight. 840,000 kids go missing every year. Are there 840,000 sets of parents that are that neglectful? When was the last time you heard of a kid going missing? Who are these kids that are going missing? I can't tell you all the years that I've lived. I can't remember a kid actually going missing, like that was kidnapped or actually got lost. Not like got lost in a shopping mall and they found somebody. I'm talking about like they had to file a police report because their son, our daughter is gone. Where do they go? Were they being child trafficked? Were they kidnapped by some creepo who, whatever? That's in the United States. We have like 340 million people. There's 7.5 billion of us in the world. Once you get your head around that, those facts, the numbers, and then there's over 100,000 kids that need to be adopted. And listen, we can talk about abortion all day, and I understand when people say, "Well, you just talk about abortion." Well, why don't we have so many of these pro-life people? Why don't we have adoption? Why don't we? Are you willing to adopt? Yes, yes, I am. But it's really difficult when it costs $25,000 a year, or it's free. But like, or you get paid to do it. But not every kid, all those kids are going to go into the foster care system immediately. It's it's starting to eat at my soul, the neglect of how much the church has just allowed the state, like individual state, but then the state, right? The nation state, truly, truly take the reins. We've completely relinquished our responsibility. So this is a vision. I don't know what's going to come of it. I don't know how. I'm praying and I'm fasting over this because I don't know how yet. But this vision is becoming more clear that we need to help. We need to become more actively involved. No, not some NGO, not some non for profit, a church thing. This is our ministry. This is the such and such ministry. This is what it is. This is what we do. It's part of our church. They're going to come stay at the church. They belong to the church. We don't need to establish another 501c3 because we got one that's called the church. I know might sound really naive. I want you to hear the heart behind it. I want the church to get back in the business, so to speak, of taking care of the poor, the children, the widows, those who can't take care of themselves, the elderly. All of it. All of it. And one thing I'd like to think of is having, grandparents and relatives in nursing homes that, it's like, well, they can't take care of themselves, but they still want to have a purpose. Do you imagine the elderly like saying, "Hey, all right, Don or Ron or Bob, like today, like your time, like bingo time, like you're gonna be spending time with with Ralphie or Susie or whatever." And like their job is to care and help with them, and so the elderly spending time with the young kids, and the young kids, they love old people, for crying out loud. They love it. Don't you think that would give a little bit of purpose back to their lives? And widows having support, being around one another, knowing that they're not alone, they can talk, but then they can have people that they help around the house, like a full support group. And so could you imagine like that Christmas? Like envision it with me. Like you have like 500 people in this like dormitory building thing. It's a community center, and you have one big gigantic Thanksgiving Christmas meal together. Can you picture that? And you have the orphans, you have the other children, your troubled youth, you got the elderly, you have widows, and it's all the people you're supposed to take care of that are cared for biblically, that are given a purpose still. They're not cast aside, and it's a safe environment. No sexual assaults, no kidnapping, no molestation. No one goes missing. There's layers upon layers of security, and it's volunteer run, and it's all supported and financed by the church. Tithe money goes right in there. We don't need a dime of the government's money or assistance. We are the best caretakers. Does not mean you. I'm not. What I'm not saying. Also, I'm not saying that you neglect medical care. No, 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 no. I'm not saying that either. I'm not one of those people. I think God has created the medical sciences. He uses great people for it. I've been a benefactor of it many times. My mom and I wouldn't be here without it. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the emotional and spiritual care that's not that's not ever present. Why don't we provide the space and invite the other people in versus us, in some cases not being able to go see them. So I just ask this might seem very strange, but I just ask that you be praying for it sincerely. I've asked God to try to help bring some clarity, but this is something I know that I must do. I don't know what my role is. I don't know the how yet, but with God, anything is possible. And the motive, again, the method, I have no idea. I'm just spitballing here. I just know that this is something we're going to have to do as a church. We will not have a choice, and I'm asking God to impart that type of passion, that type of sense of honor and duty into people. Be instilled, saying, "Well, I'm a Christian. This is what I must do. My soul compels me to do it as I yearn after God." That's what I'm asking for. Please be fasting and praying with me. I would greatly appreciate that. I just wanted to share this vision with you. Thank you so much, everyone. May God bless you, and may God keep you.